So Derek, can I get you to play something?
Yeah, I was trying to think of things. You were talking about writing that we did, during the lockdown, all the different types of tunes. And, a lot of times I'll write something and then I'll remember where I think it came from. And one of my favorite guitar players is this guy named DeGary. He's from Madagascar.
Okay.
Just really unique player. And there was a few songs on the record that he plays a lot of open tuning things. I don't even know what the tunings are. It's just a wild style he has. But a few of the tunes turned into songs on the record that it just felt like his stuff. And one of them, one of those rare times where you have an idea and it's just kind of fully formed. And I recorded it on my phone, and I thought of DeGary, and then I thought of my friend Oliver Wood, who's a great singer, songwriter, guitar player. And I just sent him the clip, and he was like, "Man, I've been listening to that melody for days. You mind if I finish writing it?" Like, have at it. So he wrote this beautiful tune that ended up being called "I Can Feel You Smiling," which was kind of written about the Colonel. Oliver was there that night with us too.
Yes, that's right.
But this song, I'll just play a little bit of it. But it's got a little bit of the DeGary thing. It also has a little bit of the maybe Duane Allman, Little Martha vibe. But a lot of that's just open tuning,
Mm-hmm.
So. Something like that.
Awesome.
But that's got a little bit of somewhere between Madagascar and Macon, Georgia. There's a place there. And there was another phrase that popped into my head that also felt like DeGary, and it's all that open tuning stuff. This one we've never played live. I got to remember it, but. Kind of the base of the tune, but his stuff is always, a lot of his stuff is all triplets. He plays a lot of triplets, but the melodies that I take out of his stuff just seem to come from a different place. I highly recommend. There's a record with him just playing acoustic guitar on the front, and it just looks like he's in the jungle somewhere. But he was kind of famous for, he would roll in for these sessions without a guitar. They'd buy him a guitar, he'd record, and then just split. Guitar would be like, he would just wander, man. He ended up playing in the States. He did a festival here. Our sound man at the time was living in Atlanta and housed him. He put him up, and DeGary and his percussionist, I can't remember his name, threw a house concert for them, which I wasn't able to go to, but I heard it was one of the greatest evenings of their life. But some of the styles that on the record, you go from that to, as a slide player, I listen to as much Charlie Patton or Book of White as I do anybody, and so there was a few song ideas that came out of that. But when I think about my favorite slide moments, I go back to these Book of White licks. I think the one I'm about to rip off is, I think it's him doing "Fixin' to Die."
Okay.
But there's these melodies he plays that I think they're beautiful things, but. Just little things like that I could
Derek,
listen to all day long.
When you're doing this stuff, are you muting with the palm of your right hand also at the same time? How do you get the clarity of every note like that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look this time. So, sometimes. But it's usually, I'm using almost all of my fingers, so you're kind of muting that way without thinking about it.
You do some of these incredibly fast runs, though, that I can't even fathom how you do them and play them so in tune.
Those are probably laying my thumb down.
Okay.
And the single notey stuff. I'll just play some melodies for you.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm muting all the way here, a little bit with the thumb.
Yeah.
And just whatever string you're at, one finger decides that we're going to take over. And everything else is kind of muted. Other times you're just letting it fly, right? The Elmore stuff, that stuff is always... just melodies for days. Those are the guys that I think you can always go back to the well. There's always almost when we dug into that poem, that Nizami poem. There's so much here. I mean, when something lasts 1,000 years, there's a reason for it usually.
Right.
But it's the same with Elmore and those guys. There's so much music there. Everyone thinks it's the same song or it's all the same progression, but the amount of melodies that are hidden in there are really incredible. All those blues guys, Sun House. There's stuff for days, man. If I'm ever out of gas with ideas or inspiration, there's certain people you can go back to, Albert King, or just the intensity of their playing, the way you bend past a note, or any of that stuff.
Now you have all these records that you're releasing one after another.
Yeah.
And do you think that people have the attention span to listen to a double record even, or why release things separately, or what are your thoughts on that about kind of the modern listener?
Yeah, I don't think people do have the attention span, which is when we got into this project, we had 24, 25 tunes, and we thought about just releasing it all at once. I just felt like such a waste. I was like, no one will dig into it no one will listen to it the way we want them to hear it. So let's just, how do people watch or listen to things now? It's kind of small chunks,
It is. It's like the TV shows that people will binge watch, but they'll watch it instead of making one movie that's 2 hours long.
Yeah.
You'll make it in a series.
And then I think somewhere along the way, our perception kind of just leaked, and it was never really that way. Like, all of our favorite records were a lot shorter than we remember them.
That's true.
And that was kind of a revelation we had, because we listened to vinyl upstairs in our studio. And I remember we were in the process of writing all this stuff, and we often go upstairs and listen to everything we've done up to that point once a week, just to kind of see where we are, see what's holding water, what's not. But we're spinning records. We're listening to Love Supreme. We're listening to Axis Bold as Love. We're listening to Sly Stone Fresh. And then I remember looking at the back. I was like, 33 minutes?
Right.
36 minutes? Are you kidding? Everyone actually, you
think that these records are incredibly long.
No, but they just
really
take you places.
That's
man.
right.
And when they're done, you're like, I would listen to that again.
Right.
Let's start that sucker over. So that was kind of a mini epiphany we had when we were thinking about this. I was like, there's no reason. At some point it was just like, how much can you cram on a CD? You're like, there's nothing artistic about that.
Right.
About let's just record until there's enough time. Like, that's not that never happens. Why?
Right.
You think about you think about your favorite records. I bet most people are surprised when they go back and think about how long they are. A double album was a little bit over an hour or so.
Right.
Because and this is something I didn't really know until we started really getting into the way we were recording. We have this beautiful old Neve console, and we're recording as analog as possible. Sometimes we only hit tape and we never hit anything else. And then you really start looking into vinyl cutting, which is difficult because there's not a lot of people doing it anymore. It's hard to get the materials.
Yep.
And you really dig into, well, why does this vinyl sound terrible and this one? You're like, well, you can only squeeze so much.
That's right.
You can squeeze more, but you lose sound quality.
You lose quality.
So most of the great records are 18 minutes aside, 15 to 20. But, you know, you don't want to squeeze much more. And you think about that, you're like, that's a half hour, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, so that was part of it. And then the other thought we had was very early in the lockdown, we started airing live concerts every Thursday just for our fans on, I forget what it was on, a YouTube channel or something. And it would, you know, we would just, 8 o'clock there's going to be a 2-hour concert, and maybe a day before, you're like, it's from Red Rocks 2016. And people were tuning in every week, and it was something to do, and it was kind of this communal thing. A lot of our fans travel and know each other, and it was a way when people were separated to kind of at least be on the same wavelength for a minute. So we did that, and then when we realized we weren't going to work forever, we did a few where we filmed the band at our house or at the farm. We did those, and it was always on a Thursday, and there was something that was just something to look forward to. And we had that when we were home with our family in the lockdown. Certain TV shows that come on bi-weekly or weekly, and you're like, cool, we have something to do Friday where there's just nothing that you can do. And so that was part of the thought of, why don't we release this as episodes? Wouldn't it be nice if we could get people to listen to the album for the first time together, communally? Because every record we've done in the last decade or so, you know, you spend a long time. There's a lot of work that goes into making an album. And then they're like, yeah, well, the first 2 tracks, iTunes is going to give away a month before the record. They're going to stagger them, and then there's 2 singles, and then the record comes out, and everyone's heard half of it.
That's right.
But piecemeal. Like,
exactly.
Not the way that it's like, why do we even bother sequencing this thing? Like, if everyone's just going to hear it randomly.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to be really stubborn about, we want this thing to come out, and we want people to hear it the way we want you to hear it, you know? And, like, there's a reason it starts here and ends here, you know, and so that was the thought, and then we put visuals with it, and we were like, well, we'll just air it for free for some time, and then we'll release the records like you release it and see how it falls.